What if your personality isn't actually you? What if your anxiety, overthinking, and self-doubt are just patterns you've repeated so many times that they've started feeling like identity? Because if that's true, then the person you've been trying to fix might not even be the real you. Your personality isn't real. It's just patterns you've repeated so many times they feel like you. That anxiety you think defines you, it's not your nature. It's a belief system running in the background, scanning for threats that aren't there. Your brain learned early that the world wasn't safe, so now it treats every decision like a potential disaster. The procrastination you call laziness, that's not character weakness, that's your identity protecting itself. If you never truly try, you never truly fail. So the delay feels safer than the possibility of not being enough. Even that overthinking you do isn't intelligence. It's your nervous system trying to solve unsolvable problems because trusting your own judgment feels dangerous. What you call personality is just conditioning wearing a name tag. You're not broken, you're repeating a pattern, and patterns aren't permanent. Most people spend their entire lives defending an identity they never consciously chose. They fight to protect patterns that don't serve them because familiar feels like truth. I used to think confidence meant never feeling afraid. Then I realized my so-called confidence was actually terror disguised as control. Every achievement, every goal I hit, every success I chased, I thought I was being ambitious, but underneath it all was the quiet panic that if I stopped achieving, people would see I wasn't enough. My confidence wasn't confidence, it was anxiety wearing a better outfit. Real confidence isn't the absence of fear, it's knowing you're enough before you prove it. It's making decisions from curiosity instead of terror. It's letting yourself be seen without the armor of achievement. Your worth isn't something you earn, it's something you will remember. The identity you defend so fiercely might be the very thing keeping you stuck, because behavior follows identity. If you believe you're someone who struggles, struggling becomes familiar. If you believe you're someone who can't trust themselves, doubt becomes home. The highest achievers are often the most insecure people in the room, and that is not a coincidence. Achievement becomes addiction when identity is uncertain. Every goal becomes evidence gathering. Maybe this will finally prove I'm enough. Every success becomes temporary relief. I'm safe until I have to prove myself again. Most successful people aren't driven by confidence. They're driven by the fear that if they stop producing, people will discover they're ordinary. This is why external validation never satisfies. It's not filling an empty cup. It's trying to prove a negative belief wrong. But beliefs don't change through evidence. They change through recognition. The most powerful shift isn't achieving more. It's recognizing that your worth isn't tied to your output. Success from security feels completely different than success from scarcity. What would you create if you already knew you were enough? Your life is shaped by what you believe about yourself, not what you think you believe, what you actually believe. The belief that runs in the background, making decisions before your conscious mind even knows there's a choice to make. Your New Year's resolutions fail because you're trying to change behavior without changing belief. You say you want to exercise consistently, but deep down, you believe you're someone who quits. You say you want better relationships, but you believe you're hard to love. You say you want financial success, but you believe money corrupts good people. The behavior you want conflicts with the identity you carry. Your nervous system protects what it recognizes. When new behavior doesn't match internal identity, the mind treats it as foreign. Under pressure, the system returns to familiarity. You can't willpower your way past identity. You have to become someone new. Then the behavior follows naturally. This is what I help people understand. Nothing changes until the belief does. Most people are living inside beliefs they never consciously chose. Beliefs formed in childhood, reinforced through experience, accepted as truth without question. But just because something feels true doesn't make it true. Have you ever noticed how you become different around different people? Like there's this version of you with your family, this version of you with co-workers, this version of you with friends, and this version of you when you're alone. Most people think that that is normal social adaptation. But what if it's something deeper? What if each environment is triggering different parts of your conditioning? Your family brings out the child who learnt to please. Your workplace brings out the person who learned achievement equals worth. Your friends bring out the version that learnt to be entertaining to be loved. None of these are fake, but none of them are the full you either. The real question isn't which is authentic. The question is, who are you when no one's watching and nothing's expected of you? Have you ever experienced this? That sense that you're performing different versions of yourself. Identity isn't fixed, it's fluid, but most people treat it like carved stone. They defend their limitations as if they're facts instead of recognizing them as patterns they practiced. Your trauma isn't your identity. What happened to you was real. The pain was real. The impact was real. But turning your wound into your identity keeps you stuck in the pattern that created it. I'm anxious because of my childhood. I struggled with relationships because of my ex. I can't trust people because I've been hurt. These aren't truths. They are stories, and stories can be rewritten. Your trauma taught your survival strategies that made sense then, but survival mode isn't living mode. You're not meant to spend your entire life protecting yourself from a danger that's no longer there. Healing isn't about fixing what's broken, it's about remembering what was broken in the first place. Your trauma informed your experience, but it doesn't have to define your future. The mind creates stories to make sense of experience, but sometimes the story becomes more real than the experience itself. You start living inside the narrative instead of living your life. The day I stopped trying to fix myself was the day everything changed. I'd spent years in therapy, read every self-help book, tried every productivity system, every meditation app, every morning routine. I was collecting solutions like trophies, but nothing stuck. Then I realized the problem wasn't that I was broken. The problem was that I believed I was broken. Every technique I tried was coming from the assumption that something was wrong and it needed to be fixed. But you can't heal something that was never wounded. I wasn't broken. I was just living from beliefs that didn't serve me anymore. The shift was recognizing that I never needed fixing in the first place. I needed remembering. You're not a problem to be solved. You're a person to be understood. Behaviour reveals belief. If you want to know what someone truly believes about themselves, don't listen to their words. Watch their choices. Watch what they tolerate. Watch what they think they deserve. The most successful people I know all share this one trait. They've learnt to make decisions from identity, not circumstance. Most people make choices based on current conditions. I can't start that business because I don't have enough money. I can't leave this relationship because I'm afraid of being alone. I can't take that risk because what if I fail? But successful people ask different questions. What would someone who already has what I want do in this situation? They operate from the identity of the person they're becoming, not the limitations of who they've been. This isn't fake it till you make it. This is identity first, then decision making. When identity shifts, behaviour follows naturally. When you know who you are, choices become clear. The most powerful question you can ask yourself isn't what should I do, it's who am I becoming and what would that person do? Your internal story shapes your external life. If the story says you're not capable, you'll find evidence everywhere. If the story says you don't deserve good things, you'll sabotage them when they show up. The story isn't describing reality, it's creating it. Stop trying to change your habits and start changing your identity. Habits are just behaviours on autopilot, but behaviours flow from identity. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with discipline, discipline will always feel forced. If you see yourself as someone who isn't good with money, you'll find ways to prove it true. But when identity shifts, habits follow naturally. Instead of I'm trying to quit smoking, it becomes I'm not a smoker. Instead of I should exercise more, it becomes I'm someone who moves their body and exercises a lot. Instead of I need to save money, it becomes I'm financially responsible. The behavior isn't something you force, it's something that flows from who you are. This is why sustainable change happens at the identity level, not the habit level. Most limits are just assumptions you stop questioning. Somewhere along the way, you decided what was possible for someone like you. But someone like you is just a story, and stories can be rewritten. I used to think confidence was something other people had. Like they were born with some internal knowing that I missed out on. I'd watch confident people and wonder what made them so sure of themselves. What did they know that I didn't? What secret were they carrying that made decision making look so easy? Then I realized confidence isn't the absence of uncertainty. Confidence is making friends with uncertainty. Confident people aren't more sure of themselves. They're just more comfortable not knowing. They've learned that you don't need to have all the answers to take the next step. Most people wait for certainty before they act, but certainty comes from action, not the other way around. You don't build confidence by thinking about it. You build confidence by doing things that scare you and discovering you're stronger than you thought. What's something you've been waiting to feel ready for? The person you are in crisis reveals the beliefs you carry in calm. When pressure hits, conditioning takes over. The patterns you fall back on show you what you truly believe about yourself and the world. Your nervous system is stuck in patterns that used to protect you, but now just limit you. That hypervigilance that kept you safe in an unsafe home, now it makes every relationship feel dangerous. That perfectionism that earned you love through achievement, now it makes everything feel like a test you might fail. Those people-pleasing skills that prevented conflict, now they make saying no feel impossible. Your nervous system learned to survive specific circumstances, but survival strategies become identity when you don't update them. The problem isn't that these patterns are wrong. The problem is that they're outdated. You're still operating from software installed in childhood, trying to navigate adult situations with a child's view. It's time for an update. What you tolerate is what you believe you deserve, not what you say you deserve, what you actually believe you deserve. The relationships you stay in, the treatment you accept, the opportunities you pass up, they're all reflections of internal worth. Most people confuse trauma responses with personality traits. I'm just anxious. No, you learnt that the world isn't safe. I'm just a perfectionist. No, you learnt that mistakes equal rejection. I'm just not good with people. No, you learnt that vulnerability leads to pain. These aren't character flaws, they're survival strategies that outlived their purpose. Anxiety isn't your nature, it's your nervous system protecting you from perceived threats. Perfectionism isn't your standard, it's your attempt to earn love through flawless performance. Social withdrawal isn't your preference, it's your protection from potential hurt. The beautiful thing about this reframe is it means you're not broken, you're just highly adapted to circumstances that no longer exist. Identity is the story you tell yourself about yourself, but most people never question whether the story is true. They just keep living it over and over until the pattern becomes the person. But here's what I want you to understand. You are not your patterns. You are not your conditioning. You are not your trauma or your mistakes or your limitations. You are the awareness that observes all of these things. You are the space in which all experiences happen. You are the constant in every changing moment of your life. The patterns are just weather passing through. They're not the sky. When you recognize yourself as the sky, vast, unchanging, spacious enough to hold any weather, everything shifts. The storms don't disappear, but they stop defining you. This is what changes when identity shifts. You stop being at the mercy of your patterns and start being the author of your experience. You stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? And start asking, what belief is creating this pattern? You stop trying to manage symptoms and start addressing the root. You stop living by default and start living by design. Most people think they need to become someone new, but the deepest work isn't becoming someone new. It's remembering who you actually are underneath all of the conditioning. You're not broken. You're not lacking anything. You're not behind or insufficient or too much or not enough. You're a person who learned to survive in specific circumstances, and those survival strategies became so familiar they started feeling like identity. But familiar isn't always what you want, and what feels normal isn't always what serves you. Nothing changes until the belief does, not the conscious belief, the unconscious belief that's running your life from behind the scenes. The belief that says you're not safe unless you perfect. The belief that says you're not lovable unless you're useful. The belief that says you can't trust yourself to make good decisions. These beliefs aren't true. They're just stories that became familiar through repetition. And if they were learned, they can be unlearned. If they were created, they can be recreated. If they were chosen once, they can be chosen again, differently this time. Your life is shaped by what you believe about yourself, not what you think you should believe, not what you hope you believe, but what you actually believe in the moments when no one's watching and nothing's expected. That's where the real work happens. That's where lasting change begins. Not in the doing, but in the being. Not in the behaviour, but in the identity underneath it. You're not trying to fix yourself. You're trying to remember yourself. And that remembering, that's where everything changes. Nothing changes until the belief does. If this made you see yourself differently, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Subscribe if you want more conversations like this one.